up. Hang in for your intro.
You've now tuned in to the Drawing Board Podcast, a powerful, thought-provoking discussion where we talk about family, relationships, ministry, community, and career. Let's see what exciting guests we have on our show today. Thank you for tuning in to the Drawing Board Podcast. This is Andre Ibrahim, the founder and the host. I'd like to welcome you to the final days of January. I hope that you're sticking to all of those New Year's resolutions or commitments that you've made. You should be listening to me on all of your phone or your devices at the gym if you promise to be there, but you probably are not. But anyway, it's never too late to get back on the horse. And like I always share with you, I like to provide you with quality information from quality people. And tonight is no different. I have with me brother and friend, Sean Malloy. Welcome, sir.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely, man. Listen, I was trying to get on your calendar, brother. No, I'm joking, but man, glad to have you here. So, known to some, let me introduce to some and present to others. Brother Sean Malloy is a devoted father and husband. And you have 6 children.
6 children.
Oh, man, listen, congrats. You took that mandate serious.
I didn't know I was, but it just worked out that way.
Absolutely. To be fruitful
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
multiply.
Praise God.
You said we got to know we're going to subdue the earth,
Yeah,
right?
we
All right.
good.
Yeah, so listen, his background spans in multiple sectors as he has served in the United States Air Force as an information technology professional, a nonprofit program director, author, entrepreneur, and he served as a youth pastor and has over 13 years of ministry experience. Whew, 13 years. Go ahead and wipe the sweat off the brow, right? Currently, he serves, I'm telling you, you serve as the program supervisor in the Office of Family and Community Engagement in the Detroit Public Schools Community District. His passion and purpose are to encourage and to serve his community. Yep. Sean Malloy. Absolutely, man. So tell me, what's the good news coming into the new year?
Man, one thing is that we're here.
Absolutely.
Right? And I say that in lieu of, the tragic occurrence that happened on Sunday. It's just a blessing to be here, you know what I'm saying, and to be able to meet and have opportunity to engage and converse with wonderful men such as yourself, but just to be here knowing that the fact that we're here, there's still purpose for us. And so to be a little bit more intentional about doing what God has called us to do, right? So I think that's just one thing. The top of the year always kind of give you an opportunity to put things into perspective, kind of realign and reassess what it is you're doing, where you're at, and then to be more intentional about getting back on track if you're off, and just pursuing your purpose a little bit more focused and intentional. So that's where we are.
Absolutely. When I was reading, going through all of the posts, and I mean, I was even debating whether I was going to do a post or not, right?
Yeah.
Because I watched so many people, because this is where the momentum is, right? Mm-hmm. I watched so many people who could care less, really. They start, and I'm not judging their intent. I'm just saying I've seen the vehicle behind tragedies like this is that they start making posts because that attention brings brand recognition, and they get into the wave of where the media is pushing, the masses, right?
Yeah.
And so I said, man, I was like, should I make a post? Should I not make a post? I was like, well, I actually followed him as it relates to his practices or his principles, and I really appreciated how, like, for me, he reminded me, because I always equate people with where I figure they will align, like, biblically. What character do they remind me a lot of? So what I was looking at is that he had an excellent spirit in everything that he did, right?
Yeah.
He demanded excellence of himself. He kept high standards. And so I felt that instead of trying to just get people to hurry up and process through it, to bring in the scripture to say, hey, we're going to rejoice with those that are rejoicing, but we're also going to take this time to mourn with those that are mourning. So, yeah, man, when I saw you posting, you was like, man, it feels like we just lost a family member.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, man, what did you mean by that?
You know how the loss of a loved one, depending on how close you are with that individual, it becomes very impactful, right?
Right.
And I think for a lot of us, we may not have known Kobe personally, but he was such an impactful figure not only as a basketball player, I think that's what he's known for just by way of his efforts over the last 20 plus years. But for me, I'm 42, he's 41. And so we basically grew up around the same time. And so for me, it was just from a very young age, from teenage years, being able to see someone on that stage, on that platform, who represented very well.
Absolutely.
Even in lieu of his discrepancy situation with his wife, but even to bounce back from that. But just to see a young brother that was so articulate, right? He could articulate what he was saying. He was a phenomenal teacher, very astute at his craft. As you mentioned, the excellence he saw, he demanded. I read a quote recently where he was talking to Kyrie Irving. He told him that he admonished Kyrie to stir up his team, right? Don't let things go so smoothly, but be an agitator so no one gets comfortable, right?
That's good.
Yeah, that's very good, right? And so you can see even now that puts a little bit of some of the things Kyrie been doing in perspective, because outside it's like, what, it don't make no sense.
Right.
But if you're fleshing out advice like that, now it does make sense because there's a greater goal that you're aiming for. And so again, just seeing his career post basketball and the evolution that he was on in regards to storytelling and just his business acumen. Again, it just was good to see, and it was very encouragement, and almost to an extent, somewhat we watched him vicariously, again, just from our teenage years, and it was just, I'm always encouraged to see him, how he engaged other athletes, how he was giving back to the game, his Mamba Academy, and just how open he was to legacy and passing on his knowledge and his aptitude to the preceding generation and the succeeding that he received from the preceding generation and then to the succeeding generation. So, our heart goes out to his family, to the families that were also on that plane. It was a huge loss just because it was so tragic and also so public.
So public.
Yeah,
Yes, sir. Yeah, you know what I love about leaders like this that resonated for me was that he was a pioneer, right? So he made everybody start to believe that they could go to the league from high school, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, there are some people who they are just destined to be rule breakers, right? To be disruptors in, like, whatever system they participate in. And, like, they have that level of thinking, right? So you remember when he was coming out of high school, and we're like, man, who is this little guy talking trash about Jordan, right?
Right.
Who aspired, but, like, his tenacity and his focus, man, maintained. And I think what you shared was very powerful about leadership and the advice that he gave to Kyrie to agitate his team to the point that nobody got comfortable, but continue to exceed and succeed, to exceed the expectations and to pursue a greater level of success. So tell me, man, Sean Malloy at his best looks like what?
Oh man, at his best, I don't know if I've seen that yet.
Okay.
That's the aspiration to get there. But ideally, humbly, I would just want to be committed to my purpose, right?
Okay.
And wholeheartedly, intentionally doing things that drive me in that direction, and ultimately those who are directly tied to me, my family, friends, and those who may be called to me in whatever capacity. So just staying focused, man, and away from distraction and things that get you off task, and staying encouraged, right? Keeping the right perspective so that I can, move forward in the things that I feel God has called me to and created me for. So I just want to be extremely intentional about purpose, right?
Right.
Fulfilling the thing for which I was created here for, and just providing the solutions that I'm here to provide. Yeah.
So interwoven through your entire conversation has been the whole idea of purpose, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there are a lot of people watching who may have a question for you, Sean. How do we discover our purpose?
Man, quite honestly, I don't have a generic way. For me, it came through serving.
Okay.
Quite honestly, it came in the mundane, right? But just being consistent in that, being faithful to that. I think from a God perspective, God, his principle is if you're faithful over little, right, then he'll make you ruler over much. I think
Absolutely.
God wants to see your faithfulness, and then he can release your purpose to you because he'll know that you will be committed to it and faithful to it. And for me, it just was a matter of just being faithful to where I was assigned. And then God just began to have people come up to me and reveal certain things, a series of dreams and visions and things like that. And then confirmation from different people. And then ultimately searching the scriptures and finding things that would confirm and affirm what was said and just going from there. And it was a very surreal process for me, but it happens different for different people. But I think one way to find it is just to be faithful where you are,
Okay.
right? Wherever you are, just be faithful to that, and your purpose will come to you, right? It'll intersect wherever you are, and God will give you insight as to who you are and what you should be doing. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that growing into your purpose is like a consistent revelation that God unfolds for you, like dimensions of that purpose and how you are to play it out?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. Obviously, at 18 years old, it would look different at 40, right?
Right.
I think you might have an overall idea of what the purpose is, but obviously you might not know the full extent of the process to the purpose, right?
Oh, that's good. Hold on. Yeah, let that play out for a minute. The process to the purpose.
The process to the purpose.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the process to the purpose is that's the journey, right? You see the purpose, and wow, it gets excited. Like, wow, I'm going to do this.
Right.
You wouldn't trust something of this extent to me. But then you go back to the monotony. You
Yeah.
have to go back to the being faithful,
Right.
and allow the series of events to take place where you can ultimately walk into what he's called you to. And then once you attain it, now you got to walk that out, right? I was talking to my wife recently, and we were just talking about being your best. And I just said to her, in all honesty, what does that look like? Because even if you on a track of growth, once you see growth occur, then ultimately something else is going to surface where you say, I still need to get better.
Right.
Right. And so I don't look necessarily put a pressure on myself about your best self, because I don't think that happens. I think whenever you get to that, then you realize there's still something I can do to improve. Right.
Right.
And so I think the mindset should be constantly working towards improvement and becoming better, because once you get at what you deem to be your best, do you stop? Right.
Okay.
And you had Keon on not too long ago, Mr. 1% Better.
Absolutely.
Right. And so if you had that mindset, then you're never max out, because you can always get 1% better. Right? And so even if we're fortunate to make it to our older years, right? As long as you have sound mind and physical abilities and whatnot, you still have an opportunity to get better, right? And so I just think, man, it's always room for improvement, and you should find some peace and some joy in that, knowing that, man, however good I feel now, there's something better.
There's more.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
So, man, I saw that you and your family took a vacation here just recently.
Oh, yeah.
Man, talk to me about that. Why was that important to you? Where'd you guys go?
Man, so I have 6 children, right? So it's 8 of us. 8 and 8 is enough, right?
Right.
So, but growing up, it was just myself and my brother and my parents. So it was 4 of us. Typical Detroit big 3 family. Father worked at Chrysler 30 plus years. But our living was pretty contained, right?
Okay.
Grew up on Goulburn, 8 Mile, and Hoover area. Graduated Osborne. But for the most part, my life consisted of Eastland, Osborne, Grandma House,
Right.
right little block. My father went to work, paid bills, gas station. That was that, right?
Right.
Occasional family reunion. My father's from Tuskegee. We would go down south, but it wasn't any real traveling, family vacation, and things like that. When I graduated high school at 18, I left and went to the Air Force.
Okay.
And while I was in the Air Force, I traveled extensively. And it sparked a desire to see the world. And once we had children, I just wanted to mirror that with my children. I wanted to provide them experiences that I didn't have as a child. And so it was big on us to give our children exposure to the world. And so, that's costly.
Absolutely.
So I took a job. I got a job, part-time job at Delta. Because if you work at the airlines, you can fly for free.
Okay.
You and your family and your parents.
All right.
And so from that, we were able to take our kids all over the world for free, right? And we just worked our network as far as friends who work with hotels to get discounts, rental cars, and things like that. And so that kind of sparked a bug for us. And so that's what we do. We use those benefits for working part time. My wife does it now.
Okay.
She took on that role, and
so that we can continue.
so
to
that we can continue to travel.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
As a matter of fact, I think I'm one of your family members.
Okay, amen. But yeah, I highly recommend it because, like I said, travel is expensive for 8 people, but my kids get to fly depending on the availability, first class, comfort plus, and we get to go a myriad of places, and so that just expands their thinking and how they see themselves, right? But over this last holiday, my in-laws are in Mississippi, and so we were going to fly down and get a rental car. We couldn't get a car though, just because of the holiday, nothing available.
Okay.
So I told my wife, well, okay, y'all, half of them flew down. And I said, well, I'm not going to Mississippi without a car. It's nothing to do, right? So I said, me and the boys will drive down. We'll take 2 days and drive down. We'll meet you there. And so that's what we did. When we got to Mississippi, we stayed for Christmas and we left the next day. We was out for 2 weeks. So it was like, since we're down deep south and we're in the car, let's just go to Alabama. I have family there, but let's go hit some museums up.
Right.
So we went to Montgomery to the Legacy Museum, which was curated or founded by Brian Stevenson, who's the subject matter of the movie Just Mercy. That's out now.
Yeah, man, absolutely wonderful movie. Have you seen it yet?
I haven't seen it yet.
So I'll say it for those who haven't seen it. I will implore you to go see it. It is an awesome movie. It's even better because it's based upon the true story.
Yeah.
It makes alive for us the responsibility. It's our theme, actually, for Dawson's Black History Month, that freedom is not only our right, it is our responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so we went there, went to the museum, saw all the artifacts, and was able to allow our children to see this, to read this. And the museum is wonderful because it's not huge, it's small and quaint. And so you can take your time and go through the various stages of the museum. And while we were there, one of the workers saw us with our family and began to talk to us and just commended my wife and I for having the kids there. And he's like, if y'all can stay another 15 to 20 minutes, it's a guy who's on one of these videos who was exonerated. He lives here. I'm going to call him, and I'm going to have him come over and talk to you all. So he's like, all right, sweet, right?
Right.
So the gentleman came over, and he had caught a case at age 17 called a capital murder charge in Arkansas.
Oh.
Yeah, and he did 13 years. He was exonerated in 2017. He got out. He was the first out of Stevenson's clients. He was he set the precedent for juveniles receiving capital murders. So the law changed, and as a result of him being free, all of the ones who had caught cases with him were also free.
Okay.
And then now the precedent is on the books against charging juveniles with capital murder life sentences. So now more charges are in the process of being changed for various people. And so, man, just to hear his story, just to hear how he persevered. His name was Contrell.
Okay.
And just to see a living example of someone who had benefited from this man's life work, it just added more impact on the actual visit. And then we left there. They have an actual memorial a couple blocks away. We did the memorial next day, and there they have artifacts reflective of various, almost innumerable people who had suffered lynching.
Wow.
Through various parts of the South, man. It's very, and I posted pictures online. It's very sobering to see just one, the quantity of people who suffered this, but also just the the vastness of the states and cities and counties who participate in these heinous acts against our people, man. And then just being in Montgomery, and I hadn't been since I was a kid, but to see the close proximity of everything, literally within a mile range, you have the state capitol.
Right.
On the corner, catty corner to the state capitol is the first White House of the Confederate Army. 1 block away from the capitol is Dexter Memorial Baptist Church, where Dr. King.
Right.
Around the corner is the market square where slaves were sold and auctioned off. Across the street from there is where Rosa Parks was arrested. Around the corner from there is the place where the Civil War was started. It's just so much history, but to go back to those times to imagine the bravery, right, and the fortitude of our ancestors and our forefathers, how they literally were smack dab in the midst of such acts and such ill behavior towards them, and how they persevered and withstood that for us.
Absolutely.
Right, and just to see it and how it's evolved, but to try to flash back on those times and just imagine, man, like how great of a people they were to be able to withstand it. Because I don't think we're not built that way. Yeah, we're not built that way. Right. And so
we are not.
It was very sobering, and again, just to put those images and that history in my children, and then go to meet aunts who are 75 and 80, and to hear the stories, to see the pictures of the great grandfather and the great aunts and all of those things, man, just turned out to be a very impactful trip. And then we left there, and then we went on to Atlanta and went on, saw Dr. King's site, and then went into the church and his home, and another sobering experience, again, to see how close they were and how almost inherently, intrinsically involved in these things. Like, he literally lived a block away from the church, right?
Right.
So this was their life. You know what I'm saying? This was their 24/7, day in, day out experience. And in the midst of that, they didn't cower, they didn't flee, but they took and assumed leadership positions to fight and advocate for causes that were for an entire race of people in an entire country. And it started right here in this small
area.
Space, man.
Right.
And it's just encouraging to know how, again, if you can commit to something and focus on it, the results and the benefit and the blessing for others could be for generations to come. You know, so and that was just good, man, for my kids to have that experience, and just to put that in their mind, put those images so that they'll have with them for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you were able to share that tonight, because we talk about exposing our children, exposing the children that we serve to greater opportunities, to greater perspectives. And I think that we're missing that oral tradition.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Our elders.
Absolutely.
That's how a lot of that wisdom was bequeathed, through oral tradition, that we don't slow down enough to be able to have these conversations, because that history still plays a huge role in what's happening today. I'll give you the message. I heard it when you were just sharing it, man. You could take the message. I'll give it to you. It's called a small space, right?
Okay,
all right?
okay, I did.
You know what I mean? All right. So, yeah.
That's
Despise not the day of small beginnings, right? All right. So, then you can bring in the context of how everything was right. That was good. We preach it
It's
together.
called first mic. Whoever get the mic first, you preach it first.
That was good, man, because, although with our children, statistically, a lot of them within Metro Detroit, they say some never leave a 5-block radius, right?
And that's what I explained.
That's what you were explaining, right?
As far as my childhood, exactly,
right.
yeah.
And so when you talk about a small space, but the greatness that was existing within that small space, the business, the principles, the culture that existed in this small place that impacted the world, right? And so I'm drawing all these cultural references that if you go over to the Holy Land, that where things happen was a very small space, right? But there is so much history layered underneath that area, right? So, man, I see all of this conviction that you have regarding family, regarding God, regarding your community. I know you took a run for office, man. What motivated you to go that route?
Man, quite honestly, again, the underlying aspiration was to serve the community, right?
Okay.
The Bible says that when the righteous rule, the people rejoice, right?
Absolutely.
And so we just wanted to have some righteous representation in the seat of authority, because we've mourned quite a while.
Absolutely.
And so we wanted to try to bring some rejoicing to the community, right, by way of office. And so even with that, it was a wonderful experience, man. I served a district of over 90-something thousand people across 3 cities, Detroit, Harper Woods, and Grosse Pointe.
Yes.
And just to get out and to knock on doors and meet a vast amount of people. We got about 20% of the votes, so close to 2,000 votes, which is no small feat for a first-time candidate running up against an incumbent.
Right.
And so from that, though, just to really have a boots on the ground, walking through the variety of experiences in the various communities in the cities, man, was very heartfelt. To talk to people, to engage people, to see what their experience was, what they desired to see, what they liked, what they disliked about our government, and just their day-to-day affairs was just very eye-opening and very beneficial to see. And although I didn't win the office, it gave me a greater understanding of the community of which I was a part of, and just various things that are needed, right? And so it was a wonderful experience, and shout out to the incumbent who won. She's doing a wonderful job. So appreciate the work that she's doing. But for me, it was just about, again, just trying to have some righteous representation in the seat of authority. I think for the most part, we find ourselves in places of reaction. We wanted to try to be proactive about bringing about some type of change, and knowing that the influence was to one of a godly nature, and not one for solely political gain or capital gain, or just to do right by the people in our city and in my particular community. So, yeah, that's why we did that.
Oh, excellent, excellent. What role do you think does the grassroots voice, the voices from the grassroots, play in like systemic change regarding any system, educational, political, church?
Man, I think historically it was that grassroots voice that brought about the change. I think it's a lot of power in unity, and it's not necessarily in the masses, because you can have the masses but not have unity. I think that examples of solidified effort by a small group of people with one consistent message can bring about a lot of change. I think you have to be very intentional about what it is you're trying to change, and then accurately assessing what's driving the thing that needs to change, and then find some type of counter strategy to go up against it, and then have people who are tenacious and persistent, and who are willing to withstand whatever the challenge and obstacle is to overcome what it is you're coming up against. And we see that civil rights move started in the basement of the church we talked about, right?
Yes, indeed.
And Gideon as 300, right? It's always been small groups of people who brought about massive amounts of change, but those small groups of people have to be committed to that cause and persistent and tenacious to withstand the ebbs and flow, what will come externally and internally, and stay focused on bringing to fruition what it is they're desiring to change, man. So education, I think, we do a lot of work with parents. A lot of our work is around increasing the awareness and the aptitude of our parents to know what they have the right to do.
Okay.
I think a lot of times the narrative that parents receive is that school or education is the principal's school, or it's this and that. And the reality of the matter is that if you don't have children, if you don't have parents, there are no schools.
There are no schools.
And so parents need to know the seat of authority and the seat of the leverage that they have, so that they can bring about desired change that they need. We live in a city or state where we see how the education funding has decreased. For us specifically, we seeing our services are improving, but we still have a long way to go, right? And so, and to offset the apathy that has existed, it's a lot. And so we work hard and tirelessly for parents to know what their children should be receiving, and then how to properly advocate for it, so that your voice can be heard. And so that's the lion's share of what we do. And it produces fruit, man. Again, and when you can walk along people and help them, that builds their confidence. And then it's almost like discipleship, right? Then they in turn go and find another parent, so on and so forth, and begin to champion those efforts that are near and dear to them. Yeah.
Right. Oh, I did. When I got a chance to see some of your staff, I said, oh, they done went and pulled some big-time ministers, some preachers that's coming in here to make some things happen.
Man,
right?
so let me tell you about that. Let me tell you. So this is the benefit of doing all things unto the Lord, right?
That's right.
And so, you oftentimes hear it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Absolutely.
And so if that's a true statement, then you have to be intentional about building relationships, right?
Right.
He who hath many friends must first be friendly. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to attain a position just because of a previous work experience that I had. And I was able to matriculate right into this field easily, and coming off of campaigning, right, it further enhanced my ability to engage community, right? And so when I came in, I was presented to me like, all right, so we're hiring, we have a lot of women. If you know some additional men, call them in. Well, my counterpart that we know, he had ran as well. And we're cool because I was youth pastor and he was on my staff.
Right.
And so we did a lot of things together in the community. I took him alongside him with me. And even when it came time for running the office, I encouraged him to run too.
Right.
And so he received similar experiences that I did. And so when the opportunity came for me to make a reference for an additional staff person, I was able to refer him, and he slid right on in, right? And so I think that's the beauty of having a good name, right?
That's right.
And to the Bible says you have to let your light shine before men that they could see your good works, right? And so, and glorify your Father which is in heaven. I think that maintaining and being intentional about your walk transcends or transitions into the workplace. And it's all biblical. It's Daniel. It's right.
Absolutely.
It all works to people would desire to have more like you, right?
That's good.
And so if you have somebody who has skills or has the ability to learn quickly, then you'll be able to help other people, and that further the cause of the Lord, right?
Absolutely.
So I was able to do that, and it's working. It's working very well. And you know who we're talking about. So
right. So your team is working diligently, man. Talk about some of the things that Face is able to do within the district and the city. What's some of the things you guys got going on?
It's just a wonderful opportunity we have, man. We're in a district that has over 50,000 plus students, and just from a numbers perspective, if we have over 50,000 plus students, if they have one parent,
we're talking
that's
about
50,000.
Right.
So you got two parents. So it's upwards between 50 and 100,000 parents across the entirety of the district, every race, every nationality, various languages, various cultural, various educational experience, poverty, wealthy, middle, whatever the case may be, the full gamut of it. So it's very dynamic, and we have the opportunity to find ways to create programming and content that would get the parents involved and engaged in their children's education and ultimately the success of the district at large. We create content. What we have is called a Parent Academy. which was partially funded by the Kellogg Foundation, or primarily funded by the Kellogg Foundation, and they've given us the ability to create programming content based around educational content, workforce development, professional development, student achievement, just a litany of things. And we provide top tier workshops, all at no expense, across the entirety of the district, for not just for district parents, but for the community. So all this programming is provided to the community, whether you go to a DPSCD school or not. And that's just another opportunity from a district perspective to serve the community that is in, even if you're at a competing school, because we understand the value of the content that we provide. And so we steward that, man. We have a faith-based council where we're working across the city to partner churches and ministries with these schools. So if you're a pastor or associate pastor, youth pastor at a school, there's an opportunity for you to come out of the four walls of your church and to serve a community in your a school in your vicinity. Children, students, families are there. They have needs, and your ministry has people that can help supply those needs. And so get involved. So there's a lot of things that we're doing. We do a bilingual PAC Parent Advisory Council where we have committees and meetings for our non-English speaking parents so that we can keep them engaged and involved with the happenings of the district, right? So just a lot of stuff we do, man. Yeah, it's a lot of things we do.
No, absolutely. So, man, you have a full plate. From family, ministry, had your political aspirations on run. But what I've loved about it all, the words that I hear just continually coming up as you speak is, number one, keep all activities centered toward purpose, right? Be totally intentional about what it is that you're doing. You can serve God in a myriad of ways. And, it's not just relegated toward your ecumenical, service within the four walls of your church. In fact, I tell people, I said, it's like going to the gym. You just got to figure out what gym best suits you, right? Yeah. And so nobody stays in the gym all the time. It would do us no good to build up these strong physiques and to just continue to look at the gym mirrors, right? Yeah. Yeah, you work out in the gym so that you can come out in public and shine, right? Right. And so what I love about it, man, is that even when I got ready to invite you on and coming into the podcast to the studio, sharing with people who was coming on, it was like, oh, Sean Malloy, oh, great guy. Another person I shared with, it was like, oh, Sean Malloy, oh yeah, that's a good brother, Amen. It was like, oh, that's my heart. He doing great funny. Work. So yeah, man, listen, you definitely have been able to build up a great name. You're doing a great work. And I guess I would ask, man, what's next for Sean Malloy? Man, the call is there to pastor. Okay. And then the call is also to serve the community, right? And so the Lord told me two things. One, you're not just a spiritual leader, but you're also a community leader, right? Okay. And so that's kind of the vein that I'm on. I had an IT background, worked at CompuWare. I walked away from it, transitioned into giving back to the community. And now that's evolved into what I do now. And so I'm just seeking God for what that will look like and how and where, more importantly, what we would do, how that would flesh out. But I know whatever we do, it will be heavily wrapped around serving the community and also building up the kingdom of God. Okay, excellent. So this is what I'm going to do, man. I'm going to open it up to the community who may have some questions. You can go ahead and text some people, call some people. We're going to open the lines up. The phone number here is 248-579-5295. We are in Studio One. Again, the phone number is 248. Somebody please put it in the comments. 248-579-5295. If you have questions for Brother Sean Malloy, If you have some comments, some experiences where he was out there knocking door to door and you just want to express your thanks and gratitude, listen, man, I love grassroots
Be
work.
kind.
Yeah, please be kind. Oh, listen, only positive comments only. We will introduce you to our friend DT. If you call with anything else than positive. Yeah, dial tone. When I used to work social work, somebody called and told my supervisor that I hung up on them. I said, no, I didn't hang up. They were yelling and screaming and cursing, and I knew that our conversation was not being productive. And I told them, I'm going to count from 5 to 1, and then I'm going to hang up the phone. Should you choose to remain on the phone after 1, you will be introduced to my friend, DT. All right? So
That's very diplomatic.
yeah, basically said, I'm getting ready to,
Yeah. That's
listen,
hilarious.
So, 248-579-5295. I have, as a Dean of Culture and Climate for Detroit Public Schools Community District, and having served in a number of schools from public to private to charter schools, the number one question that all principals have, the teachers have, from preschool all the way through 12th grade, is how can we get our families involved in our school? I had a question. I want to get your thoughts about it. Somebody said, okay, Ibrahim, this PTO, have we outlived the days of PTO and PTA, right?
Yeah.
And okay, you get all of these people together in one room. What do you really want them to do? What do you think about that?
Man, so that's another one of our initiatives, actually re-implement PTA across the district. And it's quite challenging, just because trying to establishing proper communication between parents and schools, specifically administrations. A lot of times parents feel unwelcomed in schools, right, and or intimidated based on their educational levels, right?
Right.
And so it's a lot of work that takes place, that has to take place with school. We used to do effective communication workshops across the district with principals and teachers or staff at large to kind of help them deal with or acknowledge biases and auras that they would often have when engaging parents, which cause parents not to feel welcome, right? And so, but from a PTA perspective, I think it's just, again, effectively conveying the purpose of the group and its role within the school, right? And then both parties understand the roles and responsibilities and then working towards common goals throughout the school year. And so that's the task and that's the mission that we're on. I think it also takes commitment.
Right.
Because these are leadership roles. There's funds involved. This is a 100-plus-year-old organization with national roots, and so big on advocacy and things like that. So it's a lot that they can do, but it just takes a lot of time to increase the aptitude of the parent groups to fully understand the purpose of the PTA, and then working with schools around common mission and visions, and then bringing things to fruition. So, but it is valuable, right?
Absolutely.
It's valuable because, again, it's another way to harness the voice of parents and to give them a means by which they can collectively and with some solidarity come together around issues that are near and dear to their heart.
Right, and what's best for the students at the school, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, man, I have seen it two ways, several different ways, right?
I'm sure.
So I've seen it where the PTO or PTA has gotten so strong that they developed their own nonprofit, right?
Yeah,
so
they are 501c3s. Yeah, absolutely.
So they created their own and were able to get some funding, and because they had momentum and things were going, the school was blessed and able to do some creative things centered around what the PTO needed to do because those funds weren't as regulated as it relates to where they go, right?
Correct.
And then I've seen it where because it was going so strong that the PTO began to try to dictate, to the school what's going to happen. So, it's that healthy balance of, shared power, right?
Yeah,
And then
collaboration.
Collaboration. So then I've seen it where You may have some parents who have a strong passion and strong heart, but don't necessarily have the leadership acumen to be able, or the skills to facilitate, healthy buy-in from the rest of the staff, and maybe have not been in the position of power. So then you get this kind of, tyrant or dictatorship, right? And it's about that coaching piece, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that when you have strong principal leadership that fosters collaboration from the beginning, then parents, it's not a rarity for their voice to have power within the four walls of their school.
Correct.
Yeah. So, yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. Here's the one thing that I laughed when I shared this, though, Sean. So we have our Instagram page, right?
Okay.
And I was telling myself, well, statistically, you have to have so many touch points in order to create a conversion to get parents to do certain things.
Okay,
right?
okay.
And so I said, I wanted to send out a text message to say, follow our IG page. We promise not to follow back, right?
Okay, that's funny.
Right, because certain people don't want you to
don't
see.
want you to see.
What they have going on.
Yeah,
and that's why,
absolutely.
So Facebook was safe, right?
Right, yeah.
Because, or if your page is private, then you have to approve. But I promise you. So listen, hey, follow our page. We promise
we won't follow back.
Not to follow back, right?
Well, if you had whoever your marketing person is, they would look at you with great disdain. What are you talking about?
Right. So I'm telling you, man, listen, only because we want you to be informed.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you know how that goes.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Again, the phone number is 248-579-5295. We're here live in the studio with Brother Sean Malloy.
Yeah.
From the Office of Faith. Let's hit it up. All right. So I'm getting ready to pull up. Let's talk about your book. So you're an author.
My book.
Now talk to me about that process while you're grabbing the book. Talk to me about what was the process. How did you begin writing? What compelled you? Why did you feel you needed to put pen to paper?
I've always liked reading and writing, and so one of my dreams for myself, I always saw myself like sitting at a desk with a typewriter, typing and balling up stuff, throwing it away, retyping, rewriting, and so I just felt led during that season to write a book about prayer. And so I committed to doing it, and I didn't want to write anything too lengthy, too long. I wasn't trying to be too super deep. I just wanted to present something almost as a reference, something simple, heavy induced with scripture, and with just a little bit of commentary. And so from there, I just dealt with God said ask, ask, seek, knock. And we just wanted to kind of lift up that premise that we as children of God have not only been given and afforded the privilege to pray, but we've been given a command.
Absolutely.
To pray, right? And so we wanted to just lift up some of the benefits of praying, how it impacted some of those we read in the Bible, but also gave some testimony of how prayer has blessed our lives. And so from that, we just took the time to write it out, went through the scripture, pulled different stories and references, like I said, and kind of just lifted it up. And so it was good for me to write it, and it's just good to have something in print to go back to and then also to share with people. So, yeah.
Yeah, so God said ask, seek, knock. So I just opened it, so I'm on page 64 for those of you that have it. And the question was, seek what?
Yeah.
Yeah, what are you seeking God for? There has to be a purpose behind your seek. The first order in our seek is to learn more of God, his character, and his ways. That is priority number one. Our ancillary seeks should have traces of these principal things and reflect what we need to fulfill our purpose and for insight as we intercede for others. And then it goes into a litany of things that you should seek. Well, man, that whole principle of Matthew 6:33 of seeking the Lord, man, that's huge because, man, we hear And I love what people are doing as it relates to once you believe, there's some teaching, some training, some educating, some indoctrination that you receive as a disciple. But to win souls, like there has to be a return to us coming collectively together to seek God, right?
Absolutely.
So, man, I know I've heard, and I saw my church was doing it as well. But in January, I saw a lot of prayer meetings going on. Where people were getting consecrations, back to prayer, 21-day consecration, Daniel fast, So, yeah, man, talk to me about that. Your prayer time with God. What is that, if you're able to share, what does that look like?
Man, it looks like multiple things.
Okay.
Obviously, just because of the business of life, it's not 20 hours laying prostrate, right?
Okay.
It's actually walking and talking with God, literally, right? Before I walked in the building, right? Prayer, like, Lord, have your way. You know what I'm saying? Just when you're walking in meetings, when you're engaging with people, just talking to the Lord, because that's the simplicity of prayer. It's just talking to God, right?
Right.
So you have your times where you get up early in the morning, right, and you pray and seek God, and you read scriptures and do devotionals, family devotionals, things of that sort. But it's not one thing, right? I think it's very dynamic, because he's a very present help, and so you can call upon him at any given time. There are no barriers to prayer. There are no limitations, no boundaries that can prohibit prayer. As long as you have breath, you have a sound mind, of your faculties are working, you can talk and commune with God, and that's what God inspires us to do. Adam and Eve talk with God, and
Absolutely.
so God wants us, and Jesus implored his disciples, like, you pray, Heavenly Father, give us this day our daily bread. So there's a constant or daily portion that God wants to meet out to us, and it happens through prayer. And so, man, just being able to stay focused and persistent and consistent and dedicated to spending time with God throughout the day, in some capacity, just talking to him, seeking his guidance and his input in your day-to-day affairs. So that's what we try to do.
Absolutely. So there is no one way to pursue God in prayer. You can do it through your scriptural reading of devotionals. You can pray. You can just converse with him. You can just lift your hand and say, Lord, I need you. Lord, guide me, direct me. It is an ongoing conversation.
Absolutely.
Of both speaking and listening.
Absolutely.
So, man, we have a couple minutes left. Sean, tell them where they can get in touch with you, brother.
Man, I'm on Facebook, Sean Malloy, I believe. Instagram, Sean Malloy. You see me on at work, DPSCD. I'm across the district. I'm doing a lot of stuff. So, but that's it. Primarily, you see me on Facebook and Instagram. I'm not out there pushing or promoting anything right now. So, we're just living. But if Facebook, Instagram, you see me, Sean Malloy. I'm out there. 1L, Malloy.
Okay, yeah, Sean Malloy, 1L. Right. So, if you want to get the book, where can they get the book?
Man, you can get the book on Amazon. It's still out there. Or you can hit me on, like we just mentioned, Facebook, and we can autograph it for you and get it to you, $10, and you'll have it.
Oh, yeah. So, listen, for an investment of $10, you can get this book in your life. God said ask. Ask, seek,
and knock. Yep.
And listen, I guarantee you that the door will be open. So, as we always say on the drawing board, your future is not behind you. It is not before you. It is within you. And I'm Andre Ebron. Brother Sean, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Man. Maybe I have to have your whole team back so we can go ahead and chop it up. So I know it gets lively with the face-off. Again, we implore parents to get involved at your local schools. We implore principals and teachers and administrators to welcome parents in your building, because that collaboration has the potential to exponentially change the outcomes for the children that we serve. So listen, God bless you. We're headed into February the next time I see you. And guess what? God will still be faithful then, because he is the one who is what?
And is to come.
Absolutely. God bless you. Peace out.